Okay, here we go. We're beginning a unit on programmable logic controllers called Intro to Programmable Logic Controllers. This particular presentation is an overview of programmable logic controllers, how they're distributed, and what their basic functions are. So a programmable logic controller, we almost always just refer to it as a PLC. That's a three-letter acronym using the first three letters of the programmable logic controller moniker to simplify it. Programmable logic controllers come in two particular types: integrated or a compact PLC and a modulated PLC. The integrated is what we're going to actually be using in this particular course. And then when you get into the second year curriculum, the modulated PLC system is the one that you'll be using. So this is the one that we're using in this course. This is a MicroLogix 1100. It's an offering from Allen Bradley. And it is called an integrated PLC because it is not only a central processing unit of this PLC, but it also offers some inputs and some outputs natively on it. So that's where the term integrated comes from. We don't have to buy extra components and add it on here to be able to wire physical field devices to it or physical final control elements from it. This is a modulated PLC. This is what you'll have in the second year. This is also an offering by Allen Bradley. This one, each specific card that you place in here has a specific function. So the very first card to the left is the central processing unit, and that's all that it does. You cannot wire any inputs or outputs to it. You have to add a second component, another card, that is either an input card or an output card. So if we wanted to duplicate the same functionality that we had on that previous slide in our integrated PLC, we'd have to at least buy the chassis, which has the power supply in it. We would have to purchase a central processing unit card. We would have to purchase a input card and at least one output card to be able to come up with the same configurations that we could do in that compact or integrated PLC. And the cost is significantly higher in this modular offering. Now, the functionality that is available inside it is also significantly more. So we're very limited in what we can do in that compact PLC, although that's growing and we can do quite a bit of functionality in that integrated PLC. But this one, this modular PLC, has just a lot more functionality and a lot more flexibility within it. So there's trade-offs in each one of these different systems. If we look across the global market as to where the different manufacturers lie on the total global scheme here, Siemens is our largest manufacturer. Now we do have some Siemens PLCs in the second year curriculum that students will be exposed to. Siemens is not a large presence in the United States yet. It is starting to encroach into the U.S. because of, we're in a global marketplace. The products that you're most likely going to run into when you go directly out into the field are Allen Bradley products. Allen Bradley is owned by a parent company called Rockwell Automation. As you can see, that is the dark red section of the pie, and that's the next largest size. Most of those Siemens PLC's offerings are in Europe. Most of those Rockwell Automation offerings are in the United States. So that's kind of the breakdown there. Mitsubishi Electric is the next one. The green slice there, that is mostly in Asia. So that is a Japanese company, and Mitsubishi is all over Japan and China, Korea, those particular places. You probably will not run into many or any Mitsubishi offerings in your career. I have in 30 years come across one in my career. The Schneider Electric offering is that's the one that I programmed before I came here. And I worked directly for Schneider Electric, and the PLC offering is actually called Modicon. Modicon was actually the very first PLC company. There was a gentleman who named Dick Morley, who was an electrical engineer, who got tired of manually wiring all these control circuits and thought there must be a better way, and he designed the first programmable logic controller. And he built a company out of his garage, which ultimately became Modicon, and that got sold off a couple of times, and Schneider Electric is the parent company that owns it. So it's a very nice product offering. I programmed that for 11 years when I worked there. Prior to that, I was pretty much doing Allen Bradley programming for the remainder of my career when I was at Anheuser-Busch and at Emerson Electric. The rest of these are much smaller pieces of the pie. You probably won't see too many of those out in the field, but it's kind of interesting to see how it breaks down. There's a couple of different ways that we can connect to our PLC, and this pretty much follows every PLC. You can either connect to it serially or you can connect to it over Ethernet. There's also DeviceNet that we'll hopefully get into here this semester, but we'll see if time allows for that. But these are natively the two most common nowadays. Ethernet connection has become so popular that it's kind of pushed using DeviceNet or Modbus out of the way. So this is the side of our Allen Bradley MicroLogix 1100. And you see we have two different ports there. The one here that's to the right is our serial port. Serial port, you may have heard that term before. The USB port, USB, Universal Serial Bus, is what USB stands for. And the serial in the USB moniker means serial connection. And so we will have some cables that we will plug into our USB serial port and connect to this this mini DIN is what it's called on the side of the PLC. Before USB ports were popular on personal computers, they had a serial connection on the side that was called a 9-pin D shell. And so the cable that I'm showing here is the one that Allen Bradley still sells to this day. They actually, believe it or not, do not sell a USB version of this, even though all computers are now don't even have a 9-pin DIN on it anymore. They have a USB. So the cables that we're actually using, I purchased from a third-party vendor that produces them, so that you can use a modern computer on your MicroLogix 1100. But that's the original cable that it came with. The nice thing about this is if you knew the pinout, and Allen Bradley even gave you the pinout, you could make the cable yourself. The problem with USB to the 9-pin DIN is it actually takes some electronics to be able to do that, and that's why we ordered a third party for us to be able to connect in that fashion. The nice thing about a serial connection is it has built into it, it is a certain amount of security level to it, because you physically have to go to the PLC and connect to it. So that means you have to get into the control cabinet, be able to connect to it. Now, if you're connecting through an Ethernet connection, if you can hack in to the local area network, you can probably get to the PLC, and then you can actually make some dangerous things happen. So there is, if you only connected to your computer, your PLC via a serial connection, there is some built-in security because of that. Our other option is through Ethernet connection, which we're going to look at here next. So here we could actually direct connect a PC, a personal computer, to a PLC, our programmable logic controller, with a crossover cable. And I won't go into the details of what a crossover cable is versus a patch cable. But it's a way of not having to have any interceding component in between your personal computer and your PLC. And we used to do this originally when I set up the course. The problem is the way the IT department is administering the computers, they don't like it that the computer is on a network but not on their network, and they were shutting down the Ethernet port, and we were having all sorts of problems. We abandoned that. We actually went to a serial connection, and we downloaded our programs that way. This semester, we're actually going to get into using the network that a lot of you helped me put together, and we're going to be able to connect to our PLCs over a larger network, and as an added benefit, we're going to be able to communicate with one another over the network. So we're going to be able to do some pretty cool things there. On the side, the connection to the left is our Ethernet connection, and that looks like a wall jack or some other place that you would actually plug in Ethernet port to, and it's available here on the side of the 1100. When you get over into the second year, you're going to have a modular system that you're going to be able to connect your computer to that modular system, be able to download it. And you're also going to have an interface into that system that is going to be a touchscreen, and that's going to offer you a lot of different ways of configuring input selections that we're just not going to have in this particular semester. We're just going to have the buttons and selector switches that we have on our panel will be our input devices. Okay, so let's look at the PLCs that we have available currently. So I keep referring to our unit as a Micrologix 1100. That's not really specific enough because there's actually 4 different models of the 1100. Our version is the 1100 that is catalog number 1763. So 1763 is what they call a bulletin number, and that means that it's a Micrologix 1100. The numbers that come after that, the catalog numbers that come after that, are the specific catalog number that we have. So ours is unique from the other 3. It's powered up by 124 volts. Its inputs are distinctly 24 volts DC inputs, all 10 of them. We have 2 analog inputs that we're actually not going to be using this semester. And then we're going to have 6 outputs, and we're going to be using all of those. So we're going to use all 10 of our inputs. We're going to use all 6 of our outputs. The outputs are actually, this will make sense when we actually talk about our inputs and outputs. They could either be AC or DC, and they could be of varying different voltages. And I'll explain that in a future video. Okay, so that is our specific unit that we're using, and we are going to be looking at the manuals for this particular version. So make sure that you have recorded down that we have the L16BWA model. There's actually a sticker on the side of your PLC. If you ever lose that, you can just look on the side of the PLC, and then when you're looking in the catalog, you have to know that particular model to know what functions are available inside it. So that is just an overview of PLCs, and specifically the ones that we offer in our program. And so we're going to have some future videos on the workings of a PLC, and the addresses and how to program it and how to use the software, and a lot more to come. So look for those videos in the future. We'll see you then.